Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe, and you're checking out Weekend at Gabe's, and thanks for checking out this latest episode. While you're here, also follow us on these social medias at Weekend Gabe, at Weekend at Gabe's, and also at The Real Sam Crane. Thanks for checking us out.
I am so this week. First off, if you missed any of our show on Tuesday with Vic Spencer, and Ray Flores, that was a phenomenal show. But tonight is going to be equally great. He is a spoken word artist, a wordsmith. He's been in my eardrums for nearly 30 years from the first time I heard him on Commons. One Day It All Makes Sense on the My City spoken word track. And I bought his album, been following him, like I said, through TV, through TED Talks, through Def Poetry Jam. It is an absolute pleasure to introduce the great Malik Yusef here on Weekend at Games. How are you?
I'm super Gucci, man. What's the business? What's the business, y'all?
I love that you typed your name as the God because there's never a more appropriate two words to describe you, my friend. We've been doing our research, and I just enjoyed the entire process. Absolutely fantastic.
That's a bless. I appreciate you, Sammy. That's real. That's real love right there, G.
Like I said, I've been a huge fan of yours, so this is a huge treat for me tonight that you said yes and agreed to be here with Weekend at Games. First off, how are you doing? How was your New Year? Do you have a New Year's resolution that you made for yourself?
I just have a now year continuing mantra. You know, beat Malik. That's it.
Ooh.
Okay.
I like that. Can you explain? Because you posted about this maybe a couple weeks ago. What is the now year? Because that's sort of a concept that you come with pretty much every season.
Yeah.
And it's like there is no new year. It's just now. What does that mean?
Well, from a psychological standpoint, you can't experience tomorrow. You can only experience today, which is now. You can never wake up on tomorrow. When you go to sleep tonight, you wake up and it's today. It's never going to be tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. You never experience tomorrow. The calendar changing does not guarantee you a fresh start on anything except for like maybe your taxes or something like that from a fiscal standpoint. Right. You know, but it's all right now. You know, you may graduate in school. That's different kind of chronology. What you experience inside your heart is now. There's two things you'll do in life, right? The things you do today and the things you never do.
I like that.
Man, this is gonna be one of our best interviews. Yeah, I can already tell, man. Oh man.
You've been so I love that the TED Talks that you did, TEDx talk that you did several years back. I listened to it twice because it's phenomenal. And I love the story, the your upbringing, your rise, the confidence that you built in yourself to overcome a learning disability or multiple learning disabilities, stuttering, to finding this joy through the grace of words. Talk a little bit about growing up in the Wild Hundreds, Chicago, and having these hurdles and these obstacles, and what strength you found in that upbringing that made you the man today.
Yeah, thank you for that segue, Gabe. There's a dynamism that exists in our world, but it's concentrated in this place that we call the United States of America. It's very viscous and it's very visceral as well. You can feel the strife in the air in America, right? And then let's just say that's 10x in Chicago. You know, we hear people say, you know, euphemistically, there's two Chicagos. It's a black Chicago and a white Chicago, but it's not that simple. There's a place in the middle where those two places mix and meet. And that's the sweet spot. That's where you want to live. You kind of want to live in that space, but it's hard to fucking get to.
Right.
You know, getting to the middle is very difficult. You know what I'm saying? It's very difficult. So what happens is that, like my dad, when he became a construction worker and he moved us out to the hundreds, he was moving us out for like what he thought would be a better life. You know, it's a house, it's not an apartment, you know. But he soon found out that, you know, moving us to another space didn't escape the things he had to go to, which was retroactively the racism that he had to deal with his job, and that he realized that he just had bigger bills to pay,
Right.
living far out in the hundreds, and there was a lot of Section 8 out there, whatever, but he didn't qualify because of the tax bracket he was in and the income bracket he was in. So he met with and was rife with a vast amount of fucking difficulties in trying to work all the time and couldn't raise his boys. You know what I'm saying? He was having to, my daddy would have to do jobs, 8 hours away from the house. He had to travel 8 hours to work 8 hours type shit, because the sweet jobs was for the guys that had been already vetted in, you know what I'm saying? That were journeymen or part of the good old boy network or nepotism or something like that, So, so we live in that space in the hundreds when I was growing up, where dad was rarely available. And then when he come home from work, if he did come home, if he didn't get a hotel out in Moline or wherever he was working at, if he didn't get a hotel, then he was coming home late as fuck at night, and we had to, couldn't see him most of the time. You dig what I'm saying to you? So it was a struggle for him from a parental standpoint, but it was also difficult for us as children trying to figure out how to raise ourselves in this environment. So it was rough. It was rough.
Yeah.
Looking back at your origins, this is a question I like to ask a lot of the poets that we have here on the show. When was that first time that you fell in love with words? Obviously, we touched a little bit on the dyslexia and the learning disabilities, but when was that moment where you were like, no, these are really interesting, this is really powerful, and I want to do this?
I fell in love with words almost immediately. I was maybe I was dumbfounded first. It wasn't a fall in love thing. I was dumbfounded by what words could do to people and how they could help you put what's in your mind or in your heart into somebody else's mind and heart. And I thought that was a very unique thing, and it is unique to humans on the planet. But I also saw it as a way to circumvent some of the pitfalls. As a person in America, I started to realize that poets were lauded. You start hearing about Shakespeare, and you start hearing about writers like Mark Twain, and you start to hear these things about people that were good with words. Now the problem is I couldn't really fucking read them. That was the issue.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when my first grade teacher writing stuff on the board, she put a parentheses there. I had no clue what the fuck was happening. What is this thing?
Right.
It's not a letter, but it's punctuation. I didn't understand it because I would drift off. So I missed a bunch of steps. So I guess in having to catch up with the type of broken that my brain was, the particular type of malady that I possessed was like it was tantamount to being in a race, and you're a racehorse, and you are a thoroughbred, but your gate doesn't open, and all the other thoroughbreds like slow him, and it's not that you're slow, it's that your gate won't open.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out how to jump over the fucking gate. If you've never been trained to jump over the gate, you're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things that I went through, but I started to understand that words felt good to me, and I didn't understand that part at first. But then I realized that I have synesthesia. Years later, I realized why words felt. I felt not.
What do you mean by felt good?
I could feel them, like if you ate food.
Yeah.
I could feel the words. They each did something different to me. You know what I'm saying? A hamburger does something a little bit different to you than a steak does, and a steak does a little something different than a hot dog, a Chicago dog does. You know what I'm saying? And then there's pizza does something different. So the way I'm ingesting words is almost like I'm eating them as opposed to listening to them. So I'm consuming these words. That's amazing. And I remember my earliest memory of me being bold enough to read aloud outside of school was my mother and father. They argued a lot because they were just a terrible match. They had no business marrying each other, and they made me. So that's pretty good. But
Good job.
good job.
Way to go, Mom and Dad.
On you. So they were arguing and we were driving. My mom couldn't drive, so she had to wait for my dad to come home from work to drive her to the grocery store. It was also a control mechanism for her as well, to make sure he came home or whatever. She had her own issues that she didn't do the work to get through. That's just what it is. And I'm reading signs because I'm learning how to put words together. I'm learning that there inside of every big word, there's a series of small words, stuff they teach you in elementary. So I'm reading stuff. I'm like, stop. Oh shit. Okay. Yield. Oh wow, amazing. Merge. Do not enter. Do not enter. Bridge out. My father says, whoa, wait. He stops the car.
That's such a great story.
He's distracted arguing with his wife, about whatever she dreamed up to argue about. And it's distracting him from being like, he's driving. It's dusk and we're in like Blue Island, Illinois. And they just didn't put a guardrail up. They just kind of said, bridge out. Hope if you driving through here, you should be from here, motherfucker. So my dad like, whoa. He turned the van around. And I was like, well, I saved my whole family's life, including mine,
That's so funny you mentioned that, because when my oldest, when he was starting to read, and he would hate to read, and he still is not a fan of reading, but he would always say, like, he would always read the stuff that I didn't want to hear. He's like, doesn't that sign say no turn on red? I was like, mind your business. Mind your business.
Mind your business, young man. Yeah. So I was that kid, man, just trying to figure out, it's called environmental learning, and I just was environmental literacy. I was just trying to be literate in my environment, trying to master that space.
Yeah.
So I became pretty self-aware at about 6. I realized that my brain was totally different, that I couldn't read very well. I was stuttering. All these things I realized, like, okay, I'm in trouble. Let me figure my way. Let me navigate through this. And course correcting certain things that I was good at, and not so good at, and kind of fortifying the things that I was brilliant at. Choosing colors and stuff like that in my coloring books, understanding context clues with comic books, those things like that. So
you mentioned in the TED Talks, I'm gonna refer to that just for a moment, where I think it was like your aunt or somebody's like, what's wrong with you? And growing up in that environment, especially for children who feel like they're not accepted, or there's something wrong with them, or they feel damaged, like how, like what, and you kind of said like you yourself took corrective action, but was there ever any support or awareness of what was happening with you, or a diagnosis of what was happening to you? I know this seems like now every children will get tested for disabilities. I know 30 years ago that was a completely different mindset of like there's just something internally wrong with you. So, but like where was the support coming from?
My grandma, but then my mother separated us from her because they had religious issues or whatever. And my grandmother was actually calling my mom out on her bullshit and her parenting style, which was a very brutal style of parenting, very barbaric style of parenting when it came to me and my older brother who was deaf. But he was able to get out of it quick because he was able to just be like, fuck it, I'm leaving the house, and nobody could communicate with him because he was deaf. Me, I was a little pervy to the rigors of her imagination, basically because my dad was always at work. So she had full access to be abusive to me. and then everybody just kind of like said, well, Malik should act better, you know,
Right.
that type of thing. So almost like knowing that you're different means you're wrong. And that for a child, it translates to the same exact thing. The definition is they are not divergent. I'm different, something's wrong with me. All the kids can do this, I can't do this. Something's wrong with me. And I'm sure that, you know, what we called mental retardation, I mean, it is a form of retardation where the synapses in the brain and the neural patterns are unavailable because of they underdeveloped, or they're inaccessible because of how the brain works. And then a synapse and synaptic gap and so on and so forth, and the chemicals. And sometimes you're more susceptible to the foods you eat, starches, and those are comfort foods, which interferes with your gut and slows down. And all these things kind of ancestrally work against you. And it was just no out. It was just no way out. I just didn't see a way out. That's why when I got about 15, I was like, oh, you don't really have to go to class. You can just leave the house. That was it. It was like, oh, I could just skate my way through this school. And I just turned my school into my own little fiefdom where I didn't go to class. I just went to school every day. And then I learned I was good at fashion. And I was, I was a black stone. So that was like, I had a few stones at the school. And I had the gift of violence, just like a lot of the MMA guys, they have the gift of violence. So I had the gift of violence. I wasn't a troublemaker, but I was good at being able to accelerate quickly, and that's a huge thing. It's not everybody that has that. People can be very skilled at boxing or fighting. And if you don't have the gift of violence, no matter how strong you are, if you can't activate, like Bruce Lee had the gift of violence. He was a really good martial artist, but the main thing he had was the gift of violence. So I had the gift of violence, man. And that is one of the things that saved me. Who would have known, because usually people that are like that, they become bullies or whatever. I never did that. I was always taking up for other people, but that helped me get through too. So a combination of things. I was a snazzy dresser. I was able to make money. I'm a good earner. I've always had that hustle mentality, that entrepreneurial spirit, they call it. But I had a drive to be able to get money because I knew money represented a certain amount of power. And now that I'm adult, I understand that, okay, you can have a perfectly good life without being a billionaire. I didn't understand that then when I was a kid. I was like, the only way out is to get a whole bunch of money. I didn't realize that the stuff that you like the most is not very expensive. You know what I'm saying? So it took me, after a lot of money is spent in my life, please trust me, I've learned it now that ice cream and cake for your kid's birthday is not really that expensive. So you can have a pretty stress-free life,
Yeah, exactly.
If you're not trying to chase money. So, but when I was coming up, that's all I did. I just was trying to chase money, man.
That brings me nicely into my next segment, because one of your close collaborators is a billionaire.
Yeah.
And I have Tidal. So as I was researching you this morning, shout out to Tidal. They show you all the credits for all the songs.
Okay.
So I started looking back at your writing credits. I don't know if you knew this, but Tidal has put together a playlist of Malik Yusef's writing credits. You can listen to all the songs.
That's crazy.
On that playlist, it was some of the most incredible records from the past, 10, 15 years. But included my favorite record of 2021, which was Hurricane, off of Donda. So I'm curious. My first question is, what was those sessions like, and what did it feel like to contribute to that song? Because as a Kanye fan, the way I am, we got the leak of 80 Degrees, as it was called back then.
Yeah.
Which then became Hurricane in its final form. So I was just curious to know what part you played in that process.
Man, I'm on this album, I was kind of like a co-executive producer. I touched every record, from a production standpoint and from a writing standpoint, melodic cadence, also lyricism. So I was part of every song on the album, which is a blessing. Those sessions are hellacious. Imagine being around probably the most eclectic artists of our time. Since the advent of the internet, we couldn't see a lot of the guys in the old days create. We couldn't see these guys create like this if they didn't have video cameras around them, like the Beatles and stuff like that. So I don't think anyone is more creative than Kanye, but gathering and honing that creativity, you lose some of the je ne sais quoi of personage. He's not a person that's gonna be like, gonna be tread lightly. He's gonna scream, he's gonna holler, he's gonna yell, and you have to be a person that understands he's trying to get somewhere when he does that. A lot of people be like, Kanye's hard to work with. I heard Hit Boy say Kanye's hard to work with. Yeah, Mount Everest is hard to climb. Newsflash. You know what I'm saying? Because the people that's easy to work with, you don't get to work with them because they don't exist in this air. We in rare air, and you got to be a killer to come up here. You know what I'm saying? You got to leave. Rick Ross said that to me one time. I always shout out to Rick Ross and Maybach Music. He said you had to leave so many people at the bottom of the hill to get here. Is it worth? And you got to think, is it worth it for you? Well, for Kanye, it was. He didn't want to be anything but famous. I kind of stumbled into fame. This is not what I wanted. I just wanted to sell me some drugs internationally, go to Greece, go to Italy, go to Africa, hang out, live at a villa here and there, go to St. Lucia. But fame is also a thoroughfare to rich. And it's a rough and bumpy thoroughfare, but it is a thoroughfare, and it's probably the most aggressive form of victimization. You get, attention brings money too. You know what I'm saying? So money's attracted to things that are exciting. So Kanye is probably the most exciting person in the world. You can say you love him, you can say he's crazy, but you're talking about him. And I think that, I don't think that he wants you to say bad things about him, but I don't think he cares that much either.
Right.
So that makes the environment, very volatile. There's a high octane in the air that it can, at any moment, it can torch. And you have to be ready for that. But I think it distills some of the best art that we've ever had,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I want to thank you for executive producing that song, because back when it was 80 degrees, I was like, yo, this is a nugget of a really great idea. And it was executed perfectly. So in my opinion.
Shout out Kanye West. He basically, people say, Malik, you write for Kanye West. No, I'm wrong for Kanye West.
Oh man, that's
fine.
That's incredible.
I give him all the stuff he doesn't like. I give him all the stuff that he doesn't like, and then he finds his.
Hold on, Gabe. I got one more question related to that. So obviously, Donda and his more contemporary stuff is different than how it was sort of back in the day. But I also saw you on the credits for All of the Lights. So I was interested to hear if the juxtaposition between those two sessions. Was it different? Was it very much the same? It's that same high octane level for both projects, or was it different?
Yeah, no, it's very dangerous. It feels dangerous. It really activates your amygdala. You have to be able to remain calm in that fire pit where we're forging these records. All the Lights was a strange one because it started. Now, I think I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again here with you and Gabe, Sam. When I came into this, Kanye, first of all, Kanye tries to do every album without me because understand that there's friction between he and I. Yeah. So he, when you're rich like he is and famous like he is, you don't have to have friction in your space. You can opt out of a Malik coming in. A Malik Yusef is going to bring a certain amount of friction, a certain energy to the space, a certain kind of a certain savoir-faire of, I don't like that. My taste level, like his taste level, is high. But when you're looking at things through your own lens, you're gonna like it because it comes from you. And I'm gonna come in and be like, "What? Nick? No, what? Those are the drums?" He's like, "Man, I ain't even finished the drums yet, Malik. Wait a minute." So it kicks off immediately, you know. And I'm not as talented as Kanye, you know what I'm saying? So it's like I have my spots. I gotta pick my spots, you know, because he can go in. He's one of the few people that can go in by himself into a studio with 2 pieces of equipment and make an entire album by himself, without anybody.
Right.
He doesn't do that because he wants to get us even a more superior product in a certain amount of time. So that's why he brings other people in. And I'm grateful, you know, and my kids are grateful, and we all grateful. Chicago's grateful that they get to see this war going on between these 2 guys. But so I came in to that album was Dark Twisted Fantasy, maybe?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I came in to Hawaii, and he was like, "Malik, glad you're here. I want you to work on the single. This is the single." And he played this song, and it was like, there was a dope little hook sample in there, Los Angeles. And he was like, "Please, baby, no more parties in LA." I was like, It's like Los Angeles. I was like, that's pretty dope. Okay, cool. So I'm like, I'm writing to it. I'm like, "Please, baby." And I got to a place where I was like, "Okay, please, baby, no more parties in LA. Won't catch my Ferrari parked in valet. I can call the repping Bacardi the chalet. Mixing the light in the dark like Halle. Los Angeles. LA." And he was like, "Okay, that sounds dope. We could work on that." I'm like, "But I don't know if this is the single." He was like, "I just told you the single. What do you mean?" I was like, "I don't know if this is the single." And he's like, "Well, I got some other shit, but this the single, because there's no more parties in LA because, you know, they trying to cancel us, you know, the Taylor Swift shit." I was like, "There's no such thing as canceling, whatever. Anyway, cool." So I'm like, you know, Virgil is there, and then the squad is there, and I'm like, "Okay, let's listen to some other shit." So he plays this one song that's got this sample, like boom, boom, boom. The champ is here, the Ali sample. I'm like, "Ooh, this just feels good." I'm from Chicago. I'm a Muslim. I grew up idolizing Muhammad Ali.
Right.
I mean, it was like Muhammad Ali was the person on the planet Earth, and at the time, was the most famous person in the world at a time in his life. So I'm like, this is it. But there was that sample too, so I tried to write around the sample. I was like, "The champ is here, head nigga in charge on the big man on the camp. Head nigga in charge, big man on the campus here. Taking off like the ramp is here. The goon is the one in the dampest gear, sweating and all this stuff." Everybody like, "Oh, that sound cold, Malik." I was like, like that's kind of wordy for a hook. Let me try to refine it. So I kept writing different things around that. He was like, "Man, let's just go back to the single." I'm like, "Why is this not the single? I love this song." And he says, you know, and this is his tried and true go-to move and arrow in his quiver. He's like, "Because this is not Malik Yusef album. That's why it's not the single. If you want this to be single, do your own album." I was like, "Well, Def Jam ain't open up a budget." He's like, "Because you don't even want to do an album anyway. You just want to come here and talk crazy." I was like, "A little bit I do, but yeah, I don't want to do an album. Honestly, I don't. You know it's the truth, Kanye, but we don't tell the world that. We don't say Malik don't do music. Malik's a musician, don't want to do music. That because they're gonna think like I'm crazy. So we're not gonna do that." He's like, "You just want to be a Republican and sell some drugs." I'm like, what's really wrong with that? How is that? Like, where's the badness of that, my nigga? Like, really, tell me the downsides of that.
No lies told.
He's just not like honoring that this Los Angeles song is not the single, and I can't get over this song, this Ghetto University track. I'm like, fuck. So him and Rick Ross are upstairs, and I think maybe was Hit Boy around then? Yeah, I think Hit Boy was around. And so I was like, man, everything in my spirit was like, "Go work on a single, Malik. Go work on a single." I'm like, "Okay, hey, I know I hear voices and shit because I'm crazy." I'm like, "Yo, I'm gonna go downstairs and work on the single." No, what happened was the Haiti earthquake had taken place, and Quincy Jones sent the camera crew out for Kanye to do this verse. So we wrote the verse for like the We Are the World Part 2 type thing. Yeah. And at the end, he said, "Everybody pitching in." Yeah. And I was like, "What? Like, what? When do we say some shit like that at the end of a verse?" He's like, this is Malik, you understand? This ain't for us, this for white people in other places. I was like, they live on Earth too, bro, and they listen to music. I don't give a fuck, man. No, we're not gonna say that. He's like, well, this ain't your song, man. He was pissed. I was like, bro, we can say, he's like, this is Quincy. I said, I don't give a fuck if it's Quincy Jones, Princeton Jones, it don't matter. We can't put out this music, bro. We can't never say this. It don't matter, bro. And so he was mad at me, and Rick Ross was like, man, Malik is right though. I was like, man, I'm just gonna work on the single, man. He's like, okay. he's like, what single? I was like, Ghetto University. He said, that's not the single, but okay, go ahead and work on it. And if you don't land it, it's off the album, period. Now, I was like, fuck. I was like, all right. He's like, you sure? And then we put that to bed and we'll work on the real single, No More Parties in LA. And I'm like, fuck. So I go downstairs. I take the elevator downstairs. So I'm just like, man, I'm tripping. Let me get my head clear. Bon Iver's there, and I'm telling them, he's like, man, just go and do you, Malik. I'm like, cool. So I go in, and I know that one of the tricks of writing is to think about everything but the song, right? So I get to thinking about my oldest son, Jabril, what his first words were. I start thinking about him, then I about his first words. I got happy face about my boy, and his first words were light. And I was like, And I told Drew, I said, Drew, do me a favor, man. Take the sample out. And it was like literally losing an appendage. He's like, take the sample out. That's the part you love the most. Like, I know, but something I can't fix my brain around it.
Yeah.
Takes the sample out and opens it up. Then it's like, and I was like, about lights. I like, it's all the lights. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about all the lights. Street lights, dark lights, light, all the lights, all the lights. I'm like, hold on, wait, what? What the fuck just happened? Hold on. That's, we don't go in the booth. We just bring the mics into the control room. I'm like, let me turn the mic on, make it hot. Light, stripper light. That's what he had to wear. Stripper light was in there too. Stripper light. All of the lights. I'm like, I got it. So I go back upstairs, like, I got it, bro. He's like, you got it? I was like, he said, you sure? He said, okay. If you don't got it, you'll never listen to this song fucking again. He was happy too, because he could easily just be like, it ain't it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, It might be like, what number am I guessing?
Yeah.
So he came down, and Jeff Basker was there on the keys. And we had been trying to get the song, Elton John that came, he played all the keyboards before, it just couldn't land. He had that part with that, I tried to tell you, bud, all I could say is, well, and people laughed at him because that wasn't what the hook needed to be. Cuddy took a blush at it, but when we got that all of the lights, Kanye's like, okay, go get everybody. Let's go.
Let's go.
I was like, yeah. Because it was like a crazy moment where that song was going to not be on the album at all. And it's been not a million. It's been about 20 songs like that in our career where he's like, no, this song ain't going to make it, Malik. Finally, you're wrong. I'm like, bro, this is going to be the single. It's going to close us. No, it's not. And he be dead serious. He be dead motherfucking serious too. On Bro Num, he be super serious, bro. It'd be crazy, man. And everybody be looking at the battle like, whoa. Like, man, Big John, like we've had this fight about man, so many songs, Good Life, all kind. No, Malik, you wrong. Rah. It's crazy. Yeah, but that's so that was a crazy. It's always that though. It's never easy. There's never a time where it's gotten easier working with Kanye West. It's always take a deep breath and dive into the fucking, the abyss.
Right.
It's always that the cold, dark abyss of creating a Kanye West project. And it's like you come out and there's air at the top. You're like, oh, and everybody stand at the base like, oh, okay. He survived. We thought you was dead, my nigga, but you survived. It's always that, man.
Oh man, Malik. We only got like a few more seconds with you, but no, it's fine. I want to respect your time, and also we got super comedian Clark Jones on deck.
Clark Jones in the building. Clark Jones.
Maybe we do a crossover in a second. But before we get out of here, you said that you killed it in style when you have style design. Sam has been always making fun of my attire.
Yes.
Trying to
I'm
get
glad
me
you
to
got
dress.
to this question, Gabe. I'm
Trying
glad
to
you got
dress
to this
up.
question, Gabe.
Trying to
Yes.
dress up. So I'm gonna show you what I'm wearing today, which is very conservative. Some khakis.
He got a stain on his shirt. No, that's just a shadow. My bad.
So scale me up, Malik. What am I missing in this attire?
Well, let me say this, man. Everybody has their own personal style. Then you add the fashion to that, and then that's when you individuate. That's when you individuate. When you add what's available in fashion to your own personal style. I got people I work with that dress just like that, and people I work with that don't care what they wear. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a part of the brain that wants to look into that. And part some people just like, I don't care about that part. I'm thinking about some other stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, I feel like it's different types of genes that get activated in you at times. You got somebody that's like Jeremy Scott, who's this English dude who just makes the best shit in the world. It's crazy, just like this his whole life.
Yeah.
And so then you got somebody like Ralph Lauren, who's a snazzy dresser, but is very conservative. You know what I'm saying? They're both fashion designers, though. You feel me?
All right.
I love that. Adding fashion to your style is how you individuate. I might get that tattooed or something. This has been the craziest interview we've ever done on the show. Thank you so much for your time and your stories, my friend.
Crib up, shout town, bro. Love. Shout out to everybody.
Malik Yusef here on Weekend at Gabe's. Thank you so much, and have a great new or present year.
Yes, sir. Clark Jones, get down, baby.
Have a good night, man. We appreciate it.
1,000 blessings, y'all.
The God, Malik Yusef. Oh, man, my God.
I don't want to ever do another episode of this show again, but we have got to get to our next segment. I can't even talk about what I just heard in that last one.
Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe. Thanks for checking out this latest episode of Weekend at Gabe's. Click on any of the links swirling around my head and also hit the subscribe button while you're here. Thanks for checking out us here on YouTube.